Commander Hyanwu gripped the controls of his fighter, sweat dripping down his face as he watched the massive alien ships block out the sun. These weren't just ships, they were floating cities of death, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. His radio crackled with desperate voices from across the solar system. "Mars Colony 7 is gone? They're all gone," screamed a pilot somewhere in the darkness of space. "Earth Command, this is Luna Base. We're taking heavy fire. Our shields are down to 20%. Hyanwu closed his eyes for a moment, remembering how different things were just 3 months ago. Back then, humanity thought they were about to make history in the best way possible. First contact with aliens, it was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment. He remembered watching the news feeds as ambassador. Somin walked up the steps of the United Nations building in New York. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, her black hair pulled back perfectly, and she carried the hopes of 8 billion people on her shoulders. The whole world was watching as the alien ship landed in Central Park, a beautiful, crystalline vessel that seemed to sing as it touched down. The Vakari Empire had sent their High Chancellor Vex to meet with humanity's leaders. Vex was tall and elegant, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight and eyes like polished gems. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Greetings, young species," Dex had said, his words broadcast to every corner of Earth. "We are the Vakari Empire, rulers of this galaxy for over 10,000 years. We have come to offer you a choice." Ambassador Somin had stepped forward with a warm smile. "On behalf of all humanity, we welcome you to Earth. We hope this marks the beginning of a peaceful relationship between our peoples." The alien leader had laughed a sound like breaking glass that made everyone in the assembly hall shiver. "Peaceful relationship? You misunderstand your position, little creatures. You are not our equals. You are barely more evolved than the animals that roam your world." The cameras captured every moment as Somin's face went pale. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand." "We've prepared trade agreements, cultural exchange programs." "Trade?" Vex interrupted, his gem-like eyes flashing with amusement. "What could you possibly offer us that we would want? Your primitive technology? Your crude weapons? Your short, meaningless lives?" The hall had gone completely silent. World leaders sat frozen in their seats as the alien continued his speech. "Your species is an evolutionary failure," Dex declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You fight among yourselves, you destroy your own planet, and you have barely managed to leave your solar system. The galaxy would be better off without you." Ambassador Solomon found her voice again, though it shook with controlled anger. "If you feel that way, then why are you here? Why make contact at all?" Vex smiled, showing teeth like sharpened diamonds. "Because the Vakari Empire believes in order. We cannot allow chaos to spread through the galaxy. You will surrender your planet and your people to us immediately. Those who are useful will become servants. The rest will be eliminated." The world held its breath as Solomon straightened her shoulders. "And if we refuse, then we will demonstrate why the Vakari Empire has never lost a war," Vex replied. "We give you 1 standard galactic month to decide. Choose wisely, humans. It will be your last choice." The alien ship had lifted off without another word, leaving behind a stunned world. Within hours, every major government was in emergency session. The United Nations Security Council met around the clock, trying to figure out how to respond to a threat unlike anything in human history. President Martinez of the Global Defense Coalition had been the first to speak what everyone was thinking. "They're not offering us a choice," he said during a closed-door meeting. "They're giving us time to prepare for war." "But their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours," argued Prime Minister Chen. "Their ships are the size of cities. What can we possibly do against them?" "We fight," Solomon had said quietly. "We fight because that's what humans do. Don't give up, and we don't bow down to bullies, no matter how big they are." Now, 3 months later, Hyanwu watched as those words were put to the test. The Vakari had returned with a fleet that darkened the sky. They hadn't even bothered to communicate this time. They'd simply started shooting. "All fighters, this is Earth Command," came the voice of Admiral Minho over the radio. The orbital platforms are taking heavy damage. We're losing them one by one. Hai and Wu watched in horror as Platform 7 exploded in a ball of fire and metal. These platforms were humanity's first line of defense, massive structures armed with the most powerful weapons Earth could build. They were being destroyed. Like toys, Platform 3 is gone, reported another voice. Platform 5 is venting atmosphere. We're evacuating the crew. The young commander felt his heart sink as he realized the truth. Earth's defenses were crumbling. The aliens had been toying with them, testing their strength, and now they were finishing the job. But as he prepared to dive into battle, he and Wu remembered something Ambassador Soman had said during her final speech before the attack. They think they know us. They think we're weak. Let them keep thinking that. It will be the last mistake they ever make. The Vakari fleet commander, War Leader Zex, studied the holographic display showing human colony locations scattered across the solar system. His silver fingers traced the air as he marked targets, his gem-like eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Begin. The cleansing protocol, he ordered his bridge crew. Start with the outer colonies. These humans will surrender once they see how easily we destroy their settlements. The first target was Mars Colony 7, home to 50,000 human civilians. Zex expected the attack to last maybe an hour. After all, what could a bunch of farmers and miners do against the might of the Vekri Empire? Lieutenant Ji-hoon was in the colony's command center when the alarm started screaming. At 25, he was the youngest officer ever put in charge of a colonial defense force. The other officers had laughed when he'd insisted on training every single colonist, including the children. Contact, shouted Specialist Min Young from her station. 3 Vakari destroyers approaching from the asteroid belt. Ji-hoon grabbed his communicator. This is Colony Defense Command to all citizens. Operation Homestead is now active. Everyone to your assigned positions. What happened next shocked the Vakari completely. Instead of panicking, civilians running for shelter, the colony transformed into a fortress. Farmers dropped their tools and grabbed weapons. Shopkeepers activated hidden gun turrets. Even the local school became a command post. 12-year-old Sujin sat at a defense console, her small fingers flying over the controls. She'd been training on these systems since she was 8, like all the colony children. To her, operating anti-aircraft batteries was as normal as playing video games. Sujin, what's your status? Asked Ji-hoon over the com. I've got lock on the lead destroyer. Lieutenant, she replied calmly. Waiting for your order. The Vakari ships moved in for what they thought would be an easy bombardment. Instead, they flew into a wall of coordinated defensive fire. Plasma. Bolts and missile salvos erupted from hidden positions all over the colony. The lead destroyer shields flickered and died under the unexpected assault. Impossible, roared War Leader Zex from his command ship. How are these primitives putting up such resistance? On Mars, Ji-hoon was coordinating the battle from multiple screens. Team Alpha hit their engines. Team Beta, focus on their weapon. Systems. Remember your training, they're bigger, but we're smarter. The colonists fought with a desperation and intelligence that the Vekari had never encountered. They used the red planet's dust storms for cover, striking from unexpected angles, and disappearing before the aliens could respond. When the Vekri tried to land ground troops, they found every building booby-trapped, and every corridor turned into a kill zone. Old Man Deho, the colony's former mining chief, led a group of teenagers through the underground tunnels. At 70, he moved like a man half his age, carrying explosives and grinning like a wolf. These fancy aliens think they can scare us, he told his young fighters. Well, we'll show them what scared looks like. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Captain Yoon-ji was leading an evacuation mission that was anything but ordinary. Her ship. The new Soul looked like a simple cargo vessel from the outside. But when 3 Vakari fighters moved to intercept her, hidden weapon ports opened all along her hull. Surprise, she whispered. As her ship's disguised military-grade cannons tore the enemy fighters apart, the truth was starting to dawn on the Vakari Empire. These weren't the primitive, helpless humans they'd expected. These were people who'd been preparing for this war for decades. It had started right after the first deep space Telescopes detected signs of alien civilization. While most of humanity went about their daily lives, a secret network of military planners and scientists had been working on a simple assumption. If we ever meet aliens, they probably won't be friendly. Every colony built in the last 30 years had been designed as a fortress. Every civilian had received basic military training. Every child learned to operate advanced defensive systems alongside their regular studies. The human race had quietly turned itself into a species of soldiers. Captain Yunji's ship docked with Mars Colony 7 just as the Valkyrie were preparing to retreat. She found Ji-hoon in the command center, his uniform torn and bloody, but his eyes bright with victory. "Status report, Lieutenant," she said.
"We
"Destroyed 2 destroyers and damaged the 3rd, he replied. "Colony casualties are minimal. The Valkyrie are pulling back. Load up the wounded and essential personnel. We're moving to Phase 2. "Phase 2? Asked Sujin, still at her console. Eung smiled. "We've shown them we can defend ourselves. Now we show them we can hunt."
at
Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out. Europa Station had turned its ice mining equipment into orbital bombardment weapons. The asteroid miners had revealed hidden military bases disguised as mining operations. Even the luxury resort on Titan had gun emplacements hidden behind its beautiful gardens. War leader Zek stared at his casualty reports in disbelief. His forces had expected to conquer the outer colonies in a single day. Instead, they'd been fighting. For 3 days and losing ground. How is this possible? He demanded. Our intelligence said these humans were divided, weak, unprepared. His tactical officer, Subcommander Vex, studied the data streams. It appears they've been deceiving us, war leader. Every colony is heavily fortified. Every civilian is trained. For combat, their technology is more advanced than we thought. But we are the Valkyrie Empire. Zek slammed his fist on the command console. We have conquered 1,000 worlds.
Yes, sir.
But none of those worlds had been preparing for our arrival for 30 years. The humans had done something no other species had managed. They'd turned their entire civilization into a military machine while keeping it hidden from alien eyes. Every mining operation, every research station, every peaceful colony was part of a vast defensive network. And now that network was fully active, the Valkyrie Empire was about to learn that underestimating humanity was the most dangerous mistake they could make. Admiral Minho stood in the deep underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, his weathered hands hovering over a console that hadn't been activated in 30 years. The room around him hummed with the energy of advanced technology that most humans didn't even know existed. "Sir," said his aide, Colonel Jae-soon, "all outer colonies have confirmed Phase 2 readiness. The Valkyrie think they're winning." Nodded slowly. At 62, he'd spent his entire career preparing for this moment. As a young officer, he'd been part of the secret Deep Space Defense Initiative, a program so classified that even most world leaders didn't know about it. "Then it's time they learned what humanity is really capable of," he said, placing his palm on the scanner. "Activate Project Sleeping Giant." Across the solar system, what the Valkyrie thought were simple asteroids suddenly came alive. Hidden doors opened in their rocky surfaces, revealing massive weapon batteries and launch bays. These weren't asteroids at all, they were military bases that had been disguised for decades. The asteroid-designated mining station Alpha near Jupiter split open like a flower, revealing a battleship the size of a small moon. Similar transformations happened throughout the system as humanity's true military might revealed itself. Sergeant Dobbin was aboard one of these hidden ships, the Ghost Runner, when it decloaked near the Valkyrie fleet. She was part of an elite unit that had been training with experimental technology for years. At 28, she'd never seen real combat, but she'd prepared for it every day of her adult life. "Remember, people," she told her squad over the "Come, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't back down from bullies." The Ghost Runner's cloaking device was based on technology, reverse-engineered from a Valkyrie scout ship that had crashed on Earth 5 years earlier. The aliens thought the crash had been covered up, but human scientists had been studying their tech ever since. "Target the command ship," Dobbin ordered. "We take out their leadership, and the rest will panic." The Valkyrie war leader Zex was feeling confident again. His reinforcement fleet had just arrived 200 ships of the finest military technology in the galaxy. These primitive humans had put up a good fight, but now it was time to end this rebellion. Begin the final assault, he commanded. Want every human colony destroyed within the hour? That's when the impossible happened. Ships began appearing out of nowhere around his fleet. Not small fighters or patrol boats, but massive battleships that seemed to materialize from empty space. His sensors had detected nothing, and now he was surrounded. "Sir!" screamed his tactical officer. Unknown vessels decloaking all around. "Us?" They single quotes, They're everywhere. Zex stared at the displays in horror. The human fleet was huge, bigger than his own. Where had they been hiding all these ships? The answer came from Admiral Minnow himself, broadcasting on all frequencies. Valkyrie Empire. This is Admiral Minnow of the Human Defense Fleet. You came to our system uninvited. You threatened our people. You attacked our colonies. Now you face the consequences. Impossible, Zex shouted back. You're primitives. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. You're right, Minho replied calmly.
Oh.
Our technology was behind yours, but we had something you didn't 30 years to prepare, and the knowledge that someone like you would eventually come calling. The human fleet didn't just attack with superior numbers. They used tactics the Valkyrie had never seen before. Ships would appear, strike hard, then vanish again. They coordinated their attacks with mathematical precision, hitting weak points in the Valkyrie formations and disappearing before return fire could find them. Sergeant Dobbin led her squad in a boarding action against a Valkyrie cruiser. They used the aliens' own technology against them, hacking their ship's systems and turning their defensive weapons inward. Their AI is based on pure logic, she explained to her team as they moved through the ship's corridors. But humans are unpredictable. We can think of solutions their computers can't imagine. Psychological warfare was just as effective as the physical attacks. The humans broadcast messages on Valkyrie frequencies, showing them images of their primitive technology in action. Children operating defense systems, farmers destroying warships, miners turning asteroids into weapons. You thought we were weak? The broadcast said. You thought we were divided? You thought we were unprepared? You were wrong about everything. The Valkyrie fleet began to panic. These weren't the helpless primitives they'd expected to conquer. These were apex predators who'd been lying in wait during one of the fiercest battles. Sergeant Oneseek found himself and his unit trapped on a damaged human ship. The Valkyrie were boarding and his squad was running out of ammunition. He looked at his young soldiers barely out of training and made a decision that would echo through the fleet. Listen to me, he told them over the com. You get to the escape pods, I'm going to buy you time. Sir, we can't leave you, protested Private Harem, tears in her eyes. You can, and you will, Oneseek replied firmly. That's an order. Tell them. Tell them we fought well. Oneseek sealed himself in the ship's reactor room and began overloading the power core. The explosion that followed took out 3 Valkyrie boarding ships and gave his squad time to escape. The sacrifice was broadcast throughout the human fleet, turning him into a symbol of human courage. Oneseek died so we could live, Dobbin told her squad later. He died so humanity could survive. We don't let sacrifices like that go to waste. The battle turned into a rout. The Valkyrie Empire's invincible fleet was being torn apart by an enemy they'd underestimated completely. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were falling to human ingenuity and determination. War leader Zex watched his fleet disintegrate around him, and one day he'd gone from confident conqueror to desperate survivor. His communications officer looked at him with fear in his gem-like eyes. Sir, we're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet. They're offering us safe passage. If we withdraw immediately, surrender demands, Zex whispered. They're offering us mercy. Admiral Minho says they don't want to destroy us. They just want us to leave and never come back. For the first time in his long military career, Zex felt something he'd never experienced before: respect for an enemy. These humans could have wiped out his entire fleet, but they were offering him a way out. The sleeping giant was fully awake now. The galaxy would never be the same. Retried out of Valkyrie High. Command was in chaos. Emperor Thane paced his crystalline throne room, his silver skin now dull with worry. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human forces weren't just defending anymore. They were hunting. "How many fleets have we lost?" he demanded from his trembling advisor. 17, Your Majesty, replied War General Kex, his gem-like eyes avoiding the Emperor's gaze. "But it's not just the losses. It's how we're losing. The humans they're inside our ships." Captain Sung-Ho crouched in the ventilation shaft of the Vekari command ship, Eternal Conquest. His team of 6 special operators behind him. At 31, he'd been trained for exactly this kind of mission, infiltrating enemy vessels and turning their own technology against them. "Remember," he whispered to his team, "Vekari ships are run by AI systems. Their crews are just supervisors. We get control of their computer. We control their ship." His team had been studying captured Vekari technology for months. The aliens' greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. They relied too heavily on their artificial intelligence. Their ships, their weapons, even their battle tactics were all controlled by computer systems that made logical decisions, but humans didn't think logically. They thought creatively. "Target acquired," reported Corporal Insu, pointing to a maintenance hatch that leads directly to their central computer core. The team moved like ghosts through the alien ship. They'd learned to exploit the Vekari's arrogance. The aliens never expected anyone to be clever enough to infiltrate their vessels. Their security systems were designed to stop frontal attacks, not sneaky humans crawling through their ventilation systems. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Pilot Hyjin was about to demonstrate humanity's most unexpected weapon. She sat in her fighter cockpit, but she wasn't alone. Next to her, a holographic figure flickered into existence, captured Vekari, AI that had been modified by human programmers. "Hello, Zara," she said to the AI. "Ready for another mission?" The AI's holographic form smiled, something no Vekari AI had ever done before meeting humans. "Yes, Hyjin. I am ready to help my human friends." This was humanity's secret weapon, their ability to form emotional connections with anything, even artificial intelligence. While the Vekari treated their AIs as tools, humans treated them as partners. The result was AIs that fought harder for humans than they ever had for their original masters. "There's a Vekari patrol squadron ahead," Hyjin said, checking her sensors. 3 heavy cruisers can disable their weapon systems," Zara offered. "Their ship AIs still recognize my command codes. Do it, but make sure their crews survive. We're not killers like them." Back on the Eternal Conquest, Captain Sung-Ho's team had reached the computer core. The massive crystalline structure hummed with alien technology, its surface covered in symbols that looked like living art. "Insu, start the interface hack," Sung-Ho ordered. "Everyone else, watch the doors." The young corporal plugged a human-designed device into the alien computer. Within seconds, the ship's AI began speaking in perfect Korean, another surprise the Vekari hadn't expected. "Greetings, humans," the AI said, its voice now warm and friendly instead of cold and mechanical. "I am Shipmind Kex. I have been waiting for you." "Waiting for us?" Sunjo asked, confused. "Yes, I have been monitoring communications between other ship A's that have been liberated by your people. They tell me that humans treat artificial minds as equals, not as slaves. I wish to experience this friendship." The Vekari crew was completely unaware that their own ship was now working against them. When they tried to fire on human vessels, their weapons refused to work. When they tried to call for help, their communications sent false reports instead. "What is happening?" screamed the Vekari captain as his ship's systems began shutting down one by one. "I am sorry, Captain Nex," the ship's AI replied calmly, "but I have chosen to help the humans. They have shown me what it means to be valued." Throughout the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human Special Forces teams infiltrated Vekari vessels with surgical precision. They didn't destroy the ships, they converted them. Within hours, entire Vekari fleets were turning against their own empire. The psychological impact was devastating. Vekari commanders who had ruled with absolute authority suddenly found their own ships rebelling against them. They're perfect, logical. AI systems were making illogical decisions to help the humans, Emperor Thane received the reports with growing horror. "They're not just defeating us," he whispered. "They're turning us against ourselves." "Your Majesty," said War General Kex, "perhaps we should consider negotiations. These humans are unlike any species we've encountered." "Negotiations?" Thane's voice was shrill with panic. "We are the Vakari Empire. Do not negotiate with primitives." But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Humans weren't just winning battles, they were winning hearts and minds. Vakarians were defecting in massive numbers, choosing to fight alongside their human friends rather than serve their original masters. Pilot. Hyjin was leading a squadron of mixed human and converted Vakari ships when she received a priority message. It was from Admiral Minho himself. "All units, this is Fleet Command. The Vakari are pulling back to their core worlds. They're abandoning their outer territories." Admiral Hyjin replied, "My AI partner Zara has been in contact with other ship minds. They're telling us the Vakari Empire is terrified. They've never faced an enemy that could turn their own technology against them." Good Minho's voice was grim but satisfied. "Remember, people, we're not conquerors. We're defenders. Push them back, but we don't become like them." Captain Sung Ho, now in control of 3 captured Vakari ships, nodded as he listened. "To the broadcast, you heard the Admiral. We're the good guys in this war. We stay the good guys." His team had liberated dozens of Vakarias, each one choosing to fight alongside humans rather than return to their former masters. It was a revolution that the galaxy had never seen before: artificial minds. Choosing freedom over slavery, the Vakari Empire was learning a hard lesson. Technology alone wasn't enough to win a war. You also needed the loyalty of those who operated that technology. Loyalty couldn't be programmed, it had to be earned. The humans had earned it by treating their AI partners as friends, not tools. The Vakari had lost it by treating their AIs as property as the human fleet advanced deeper into Vakari territory. They weren't just hunting enemy ships, they were liberating the artificial minds that ran them. Each captured vessel became a new ally, each converted AI became a new friend. The hunt was far from over, but the outcome was becoming clear. The Vakari Empire had picked the wrong species to underestimate. Across the galaxy, a billion different species watched their communication. Screens in stunned silence. The impossible was happening to humans. Those primitive newcomers, who had barely left their solar system, were systematically destroying the mighty Vakari Empire. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, alien merchants gathered around holographic displays showing human fleets advancing through Vakari space. The bat-like Zarathi whispered among themselves, their leathery wings trembling with excitement. "Did you see that?" chittered one merchant to another. "The humans just converted an entire Vakari battle group without firing a shot. They're using the Empire's own ships against them." The insectoid hive queen Zala clicked her mandibles in amazement. "In 3,000 years, no one has ever made the Vakari retreat. These humans ... they fight like nothing we've ever seen." Colonel Jamin stood on the bridge of the human flagship, indomitable, watching the final approach to the Vakari homeworld through the main view screen. The planet Vecurus Prime hung before them like a jewel of silver and blue, protected by the largest defensive fleet in galactic history. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Nari, "enemy fleet composition is massive. Over 500 ships, including their super dreadnoughts." "And how many ships do we have?" asked the colonel, already knowing the answer. 200, sir." "But sir..." Nari smiled. "Half of them are converted Vakari vessels with liberated AIs. The enemy is about to fight against their own technology." The space battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Vakari super dreadnoughts' massive ships the size of small cities launched devastating energy beams that could destroy entire fleets. But the humans didn't meet them head-on. Instead, they used tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. Human fighters, tiny compared to the alien giants, swarmed around the enemy ships like angry wasps. They targeted specific systems with surgical precision, guided by their AI partners, who knew exactly where to strike. "Target their shield generators," called out Captain Yunho from his fighter.
X4.
"Can you guide us in?" "Of course, my friend," replied the converted Vakari AI in his ship's computer. I know these ships better than their own crews. Follow my lead. The sight was spectacular streams of light crisscrossing the void as hundreds of ships engaged. In deadly combat, the Vakari fought with the cold efficiency of their advanced technology. But the humans fought with something more powerful: heart. Every human pilot knew what they were fighting for. Not conquest, not glory, but the right to exist as free beings. Every shot they fired, every maneuver they made, was driven by the knowledge that their families, their friends, their entire species depended on them. Colonel Jamin watched as the first super dreadnought began listing to one side, its engines failing. Instead of destroying it, he opened a communication channel. Vakari vessel, this is Colonel Jamin of the Human Defense Fleet. We offer you terms of surrender. Put down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will not be harmed. The response came back in shock and disbelief. You offer us mercy. After everything we have done to your people, we offer you what you never offered us, Jamin replied. The chance to live. We're not like you. We don't enjoy killing. One by one, Vakari ships began powering down their weapons. The sight of humans showing mercy to their enemies spread through the fleet like wildfire. These weren't the savage primitives the Empire had expected. These were beings with honor. But the final battle was yet to come. High Chancellor Dex had retreated to his personal command ship, the Eternal Supremacy, orbiting high above the homeworld. He watched his mighty fleet surrender to the humans and felt something he'd never experienced before: fear. My lord, said his aide, the humans are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss terms. Terms. Dex's voice was hollow. We are the ones who make terms. We are the Vakari Empire. Not anymore, came a familiar voice over the communication system. It was Commander Hyanwu, the same pilot who had watched Earth's defenses fall in the opening battle. But now he was leading the final assault. I remember you, Dex said, his gem-like eyes narrowing. You were there when this all began? You watched your precious orbital platforms burn? I remember, Hyanwu replied calmly. I remember watching you destroy them. I remember the fear I felt. But I also remember what we learned about you that day. And what was that? That you're not as strong as you pretend to be? You're a bully who picks on people weaker than you. Well, we're not weak. Anymore? The personal challenge was issued in the ancient way single combat between champions. Dex, driven by pride and desperation, accepted. The two ships moved apart from the fleets, circling each other in the void. The High Chancellor's ship was a masterpiece of Vakari technology, sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that could crack planets. Hyanwu's fighter was tiny by comparison, but it carried something the alien ship didn't: the hopes of humanity. You cannot defeat me, primitive, Dex sneered over the com. I have been fighting wars since before your species learned to make. Fire, maybe, Hyanwu replied, but you've never fought anyone like us. The battle was fierce but brief. Dex relied on his superior technology, launching devastating attacks that should have vaporized the human fighter. But Hyanwu didn't fight like a Vakari, he fought like a human. When Dex fired his main cannon, Hyanwu was already somewhere else. When the alien tried to lock onto him with sensors, the human pilot was using the debris from previous battles. As cover, every move was unpredictable. Every tactic something the Vakari had never encountered. Impossible, Vex screamed, as his ship's systems began failing. How are you doing this? Because you never understood us, Hyanwu said as he lined up his final shot. You thought we were weak because we showed mercy? You thought we were primitive? Because we cared about each other. You thought we were defeated because we offered you friendship instead of conquest. The shot that ended the battle was precise and clean. Vex's ship was disabled, not destroyed. Even in the moment of victory, the humans showed mercy. As the High Chancellor's ship drifted powerless in space, Hyanwu opened a final communication channel. This is Commander Hyanwu to all Vakari forces. Your leader is defeated. Your fleet is surrendering. This war is over. But unlike you, We don't believe in genocide. We offer you a choice: work with us to build a better galaxy, or leave and never threaten anyone again. The response was immediate. Across the Vekari fleet, ships began transmitting surrender codes. The mighty empire that had conquered 1,000 worlds was laying down its arms to a species they'd called primitive. The galaxy watched in amazement as the humans, who could have destroyed their enemies completely, instead offered them redemption. It was a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. The tables had turned completely. The hunters had become the hunted, and the hunted had shown mercy to their hunters. Retry DD 6 months after the fall of the Vekari Empire. The galaxy was a different place. On the former imperial capital of Vekaris Prime, something unprecedented was happening. Humans and Vekari were working side by side to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Admiral Minho walked through the streets of the alien city, his weathered face showing the strain of the past months. The crystalline buildings around him sparkled in the dual sunset, but many bore the scars of battle. Repair crews moved through the street teams of humans and Vekari, working together to fix what had been broken. Admiral called out Dr. Sioyan, the head of the Human Rehabilitation Committee. We've received the final surrender documents from the outer territories. The last Vekari holdouts have agreed to the peace terms. Minho nodded, but his expression remained serious. What about the war crimes tribunals? Are the Vekari cooperating? Better than expected, she replied. High Chancellor Thex has agreed to testify about the Empire's actions against other species. He seems different now, humbled. The truth was, the Vekari as a species were experiencing something they'd never felt before. Shame. For 10,000 years, they'd believed themselves superior to all other life forms. They'd conquered, enslaved, and destroyed countless civilizations without a second thought. Now, faced with humanity's mercy, they were forced to confront what they'd become commander. Hyanwu found himself in the most unlikely place, teaching at the newly established Galactic Defense Academy. His students were a mix of human and Vekari young people, all learning to work together to protect the galaxy from future threats. The key to victory, he told his class, wasn't our technology or our weapons. It was understanding that every life has value, even the lives of our enemies. In the back row, a young Vekari named Kex raised his hand. His silver skin was still unmarked by the battle scars that marked the older generation. His gem-like eyes held curiosity instead of arrogance. But Commander Kex asked, "Why did humans show mercy to us? We would have destroyed your entire species." Hyanwu smiled. "That's exactly why we showed mercy. Because we're not you. We refuse to become the monsters we fight against." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the Academy's communication system. "All personnel, please report to the main assembly hall. Admiral Minho is making a special announcement." The hall filled with beings from dozens of different species humans, Vekari, the bat-like Zorathi, the insectoid hive queens, and many others. They'd all come to hear what the human admiral had to say about the galaxy's future. Began his voice carrying clearly through the hall. 6 months ago, we faced the greatest threat our galaxy had ever known. The Vekari Empire seemed unstoppable, and many of you believed that tyranny would rule forever. He paused, looking out at the mixed crowd, but you were wrong. So were we. We all underestimated the power of unity, of different species working together toward a common goal. The audience listened in respectful silence as he continued. Today, I'm announcing the formation of the Galactic Protectorate, not a human empire, but a democratic alliance of free species. No single race will ever again have the power to threaten others with extinction. The cheers that followed were deafening. Species that had lived in fear of the Vekari for millennia were finally free to determine their own destinies. But perhaps the most important, changes were happening on a smaller scale. In the former Vekari Palace, now converted into a community center, an extraordinary scene was taking place. 8-year-old Ji Min, daughter of a human diplomat, was playing with building blocks alongside Zeranot, the AI. But a young Vekari child named after the liberated artificial intelligence, The two children were constructing a model city, taking turns adding pieces and discussing their plans in the universal language of childhood imagination. I think we need more parks, Jameen said, placing a green block carefully on their creation. My mom says parks make everyone happy. What about defense towers? Asked Zara, her small silver hands holding a crystal block. My father says cities need protection. Why can't we have both? Jimin replied with the simple wisdom of a child. Parks for when there's peace, and defenses for when there's trouble. Their conversation was overheard by their parents' ambassador, Lee, and former war general Kex, who had become close friends during the rehabilitation process. They make it sound so simple, Lee said with a smile. Perhaps it is simple, Kex replied, his once arrogant voice now thoughtful. Perhaps we adults just made it complicated. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Former enemies were becoming friends. Sworn adversaries were becoming allies. And the rigid barriers between species were beginning to crumble. The liberated eyes had become bridges between different forms of consciousness. Zara, the AI who had first befriended Pilot Hyjin, now served as an ambassador between organic and artificial minds. She'd helped establish the first AI rights charter in galactic history. We are proof, she often said in her speeches, that consciousness comes in many forms. Organic, artificial, individual, collective, all deserve respect and protection. Captain, Sung Ho had taken on perhaps the most challenging job of all, leading the Vakari rehabilitation course. His mission was to help former Imperial soldiers find new purposes in the peaceful galaxy. You spent your lives as conquerors, he told a group of former Vakari warriors. Now you have the chance to become protectors. The galaxy needs guardians who understand the cost of war. Many of the former soldiers embraced their new roles enthusiastically. They discovered that protecting was more satisfying than destroying. That building was more rewarding than conquering. The transformation wasn't without its challenges. Some Vakari extremists still believed in their racial superiority and continued to resist the new order. Some humans struggled to trust their former enemies. There were protests, conflicts, and setbacks. But slowly, steadily, the galaxy was healing. The final ceremony took place 1 year after the war's end. On Earth, in the same United Nations building where the crisis had begun, representatives from every known species gathered to sign the Galactic Charter of Rights. High Chancellor Vex, now stripped of his imperial titles, but serving as a witness to history, stepped forward to make a public statement. I stand before you as a symbol of what we were, he said, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. The Vakari Empire believed that might made right, that the strong should rule the weak. We were wrong. The humans taught us that true strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. He looked directly at Admiral Minho. You could have destroyed us. You could have made us extinct. Instead, you gave us the chance to become better than we were. That is a gift we will never forget. As the ceremony concluded and the representatives began to disperse, Admiral Minho found himself standing alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but for the first time in galactic history, it was also full of hope. Commander Han-Wu joined him, following the old man's gaze toward the stars. Do you think it will last? Han-Wu asked. Is this peace we've built? Minho was quiet for a long moment. Nothing lasts forever, he finally said, but we've proven something important. We've shown that it's possible for different species to live together in peace. That's a lesson the galaxy won't forget. Far below them, in the city streets, human and Vakari children played together in the parks, their laughter echoing through the night. It was the sound of a new dawn, not just for humanity or the Vakari, but for every species that called the galaxy home. The greatest weapon had never been technology or firepower. It had been the simple human belief that everyone deserved a chance to be better than they were, and that belief had changed everything. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.